day is finally here. Let's talk about reintroduction. Before we jump into how to reintroduce, let's talk about getting a new MSQ, okay? Please do this before you start reintroducing foods, ideally the day before. We want a really good snapshot of how your body's doing after you've completed the first 30 days, you've healed your gut, or you've making great strides in healing your gut, you've detoxed, you're ready to reintroduce foods. Before you do, let's get a good snapshot of how you're feeling. Okay, so please stop and fill out that MSQ form if you haven't already. And then let's talk about what the protocol looks like during your reintroduction phase. Okay, so days 30 through 60, what should you be taking? So as an overview, you are going to continue taking omega-3 and digestive enzymes, your enzyme support capsules. Okay, and you should have enough to take these throughout the 60 days. So continue taking those. If you had been taking an increased dose of omega-3s to really support decreasing inflammation, you may want to order some more here. Okay, but these two we want you to continue. If you have more fiber left, which most likely you do, please continue taking that. We want you to continue mixing in that 1 to 2 teaspoons of fiber with apple cider vinegar and drinking that mixed in water before dinner. If you don't love this part, that's okay, hang in there. And again, it doesn't have to be apple cider vinegar. It could be just a little splash of juice if that's easier for you. The apple cider vinegar is excellent for your gut, but if it's just intolerable, just adjust, okay? But we want to continue to feed that good bacteria in the gut. So please continue taking the fiber. If you have the green immunity left, please continue drinking that at least once a day until that's completed. And then we do really recommend that you try and make it a habit to drink green tea regularly. It really is such a powerful beverage that you can include in your regular diet. And we hope that on this protocol, if you didn't like it before or drink it before, that you're growing to like it. And then there's some optional pieces to this section, okay? So you probably don't have any of these supplements left, but you can order more if you feel like they would be helpful. We don't make it mandatory because we want to keep the cost low for everyone, but they can be things that can be helpful, especially if you feel like your gut could still use some support. So you can order more Foundation Shake, and you can order more Foundation Multivitamin or Optimal Probiotic. If you're doing amazing on eating organic, rainbow, like the full spectrum of the rainbow fruits and vegetables, then you may not need that multivitamin, although Dr. Beard and all of us on her team, we still take her Foundation multivitamin, even though we do well on our diets. So fortunately, our soil quality just isn't what it used to be, and so we don't like to rely simply on our diet for the multivitamin. So you may want more. And then for the optimal probiotic, if you're eating fermented foods daily, or at least a couple times a week, you may not need a daily probiotic. But if you're not eating fermented foods, or you feel like your gut could continue to use some extra support during this time, then we would recommend that you consider some of that optimal probiotic and reordering that. And then we want you to continue to have regular bowel movements like we've mentioned. So if you need to add in magnesium citrate to have that, please do that, as well as all the other best practices for having at least one bowel movement a day. And if you need to order any of these things, you can do that on our website at the shop tab. So amybeardmd.com/shop. Okay, let's talk about reintroducing foods. Now, I have to emphasize again, do it once, do it right, okay? You have gotten this far. You have laid the foundation. You've cleared up a lot of things that had been going on in your gut. You've allowed your body to detox. If you had any symptoms come up from die-off during this time, you've let that subside. You're ready to reintroduce foods. Now, this is the time to do it right, okay? This is the time to be compliant, to not rush. This is really where you get the most valuable data. So I can't emphasize this enough. People want to eat the things that they've been missing, and I get it, absolutely. But we really, really want you to get some good data from this program. So this is the best time to do this by the book, okay? So in functional medicine, we never underestimate the power of N = 1. In scientific studies, research can be seen as more powerful and stronger evidence when you have a sample size of people that's very large. Okay, so studies with hundreds of people or thousands of people that have data, we would say, oh, wow, that's really strong evidence of whatever the result might be. But in functional medicine, and in this case in particular, when we're reintroducing foods, you are unique. Your body is a specific set of genetics, and it has a specific environment and a specific lifestyle. And so the things that you're going to react to are going to be different from the next person watching this video. Okay, so we want you to keep in mind that this is your time to get your data. If you want to know what diet is best for you, what foods are best for you, this is how you're going to find that out. So let's talk about how to do it. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to read pages 22 through 24 of your Elimination Diet Comprehensive Guide. And that's going to talk about reintroduction. So either stop now, pause the video, I'll still be here, or at the end of this video, go ahead and go read those pages. Okay. Super important that you have a really good understanding of how to do reintroduction and why we want to do it well. During this phase, like you've been waiting for, we're going to strategically reintroduce the following foods: wheat, dairy, soy, corn, peanuts, eggs, beef, pork, shellfish, and any other foods that you may have chosen to eliminate. We're going to strategically reintroduce each of them. So I want you to view reintroduction as a series of mini experiments, okay? So these mini experiments last about 3, maybe 4 days. On day 1, you're gonna reintroduce one uncomplicated food, and we want you to eat 2 or 3 servings of that food during the first day, so you get a pretty good exposure to that food. And during that day, you're gonna use the food reintroduction tracker to assess for symptoms that may come up. On day 2, you're going to wake up and you're going to go back to eating the same elimination diet that you've been eating. And you're just going to watch for symptoms. Okay? So if on day 1 you introduce eggs and you eat 2 or 3 servings of eggs, whether it's plain or somehow built into other recipes, then do that day 1, look for symptoms. Day 2, don't eat eggs, look for symptoms. On day 3, you can reintroduce a new food on day 3 if you have not experienced any symptoms that are still lingering, okay? If you experienced some symptoms on day 1, but then they subsided and you're feeling good and normal again, then you can reintroduce a new food, but keep eggs out. If you don't experience symptoms, you can keep eggs in and you can continue eating the elimination food plan, but eggs count as well for what you can be eating. And then we want you to, if you're having symptoms that haven't gone away, okay, and maybe you had a flare up in joint pain, for example, and you've still got some aches going on that weren't there before eating eggs, then we want you to continue eating that elimination diet until those symptoms subside before you reintroduce a new food. If you rush, it can start to get very hard to tell which food is the issue. So do it once, do it right. Rule number 1, reintroduce pure, uncomplicated foods, okay? Pizza is not okay to reintroduce right now because you won't know what aspect of the pizza is causing the issue, okay? Is it the wheat? Is it the cheese? Is it the soy that I didn't even realize was in the crust, right? So you want to make sure you're reintroducing pure, uncomplicated foods. You'll be able to potentially eat pizza later, okay? But now's not the time. When you are reintroducing, this is in your protocol and diet guide, but we want you to have some considerations as you think about the foods you're choosing. 1, you want to think about sourcing. Okay, so it's more than just the food itself that can impact its digestibility. We want to make sure it's non-GMO. Ideally, it's organic, so you're not also getting exposed to some pesticides or chemicals that are on that food product that might be triggering the reaction and not the food itself. And then when you can, we want, again, that highest quality of food. So pasture-raised varieties of meat and eggs would be ideal. Conventional products, again, they can include pesticides or other chemicals that could cause a reaction. And you might think it's a food sensitivity when really it's a sensitivity to one of the chemicals that was on the food, okay? So the next thing would be the order of reintroduction. We don't necessarily prescribe a certain order. If there's something that you have been craving, please start there so you can hopefully continue to have that in your diet, okay? The exception would be coffee, and we're going to talk about that in a second. For eggs, organic and either free range or pasture raised would be the best options. For dairy, and this goes for wheat, and we'll talk about this as well, there are subcategories that are good to reintroduce separately because you may be able to tolerate some versions of dairy better than others, just because each of them can be digested differently and there can be different components to dairy that you are sensitive to or not sensitive to. So we recommend these 5 different things. At one time, try doing a grass-fed butter. Another time you could do a ricotta cheese or a whey protein powder. Both of those are predominantly whey, okay? And so you may be able to tolerate whey, but not casein. Goat cheese or a soft cheese could be done differently from a hard cheese, okay? And then Greek yogurt or a fermented yogurt will also be digested differently. So try those things separately. I know that takes a little extra time, but it'll definitely be worth it to know if you can tolerate some things better than others. For soy, we recommend introducing soy that's fermented. So that would be tofu or tamari is the fermented traditional soy sauce. If you go to the store and you look at just a generic soy sauce, you're going to be shocked at the amount of wheat that's actually in soy sauce. Okay, so read those labels. And Dr. Beard does not recommend eating unfermented soy. It just doesn't sit well in our digestive tract. So we do recommend sticking with tofu or tamari for your sources of soy. And then for corn, we've got some options there of things that are a little bit better on our digestive tracts and easier for our bodies to break down. So you could try reintroducing those types of corn. For wheat, again, the sourcing and the preparation can impact digestibility. So organic sourdough wheat bread that's traditionally prepared is ideal. If you can get your hands on some of that, that would be a great thing to reintroduce. You may find that you handle that much better than a traditional or than a more conventional bread. The next thing you could try is Ezekiel bread. That's a particular brand, and or you could try another sprouted wheat bread. And then any variety of organic wheat. Okay, so organic wheat bread or organic wheat pasta or farro, those would be other options that you could try as a subcategory. But again, please choose organic because we are finding that I think a lot of people think they have a wheat sensitivity or a gluten sensitivity, but sometimes it might be what's on the wheat. Okay, other reintroductions. People always ask, can I reintroduce coffee? And maybe is the answer. Okay, so we want you to consider the impact that caffeine and coffee can have on your blood sugar and your stress hormones. So if you've been diagnosed with prediabetes or you've had issues with weight gain, particularly belly fat, or your blood sugar isn't as optimal as it could be, or you're in a season of stress, those might be reasons why keeping caffeine out for a little longer could be really beneficial for your body, okay? And just not amping it back up again. If you're just craving that warm, cozy cup of the flavor, then you could try an organic decaf coffee that uses a Swiss water method. There's a couple brands out there that you can find at the grocery store or online. And that just means that in the process of decaffeinating the coffee, they didn't use chemicals. And then for alcohol and sweeteners, etc., those things that we've kept out because we've kept out processed foods. For best results, please wait until the end of this program before you start having some of those back in your diet again. And when you do, please keep them limited. This is the food reintroduction symptom tracker. You're going to find this in the Facebook group. This is what you're going to want to use to track your symptoms. It's going to help prompt you to think about, what am I experiencing today? If you want to be even more thorough, you could maybe not necessarily do the MSQ score every day, but you could look at that MSQ handout and just go through, am I having a little bit more of any of these symptoms? If it helps you to visually just go through that thorough list of symptoms and things you might be experiencing. Again, do it once, do it right, do not rush, okay? I've walked with people through this where they thought, oh, I felt great on day one, did fine with eggs, boom, let's do the next thing. And a week or two later, they're like, shoot, I have all these new symptoms, but I've introduced like 4 or 5 foods and I have no idea what it's from. Okay. So it can take food sensitivities a couple days before you start to see the symptoms. We're going to talk about that in a second. So we want you to not rush. There's a reason that we have it spaced out by a couple days. So let's talk about adverse food reactions so you can have an understanding of why we do this reintroduction the way we do it. So there's several types of food reactions that you can have. The first is a food allergy, right? This is what we're most familiar with. It's that immediate food response, that immediate immune response, I should say. Common foods people have allergies to: peanuts, tree nuts, wheat, soy, milk, shellfish, eggs, and symptoms that we think about, right? So it's the rash or the swollen or itchy tongue or breakout in hives or the trouble breathing, the wheezing, coughing. Those are things that we think about when we think of allergies, okay? If you have a food allergy, you probably already know you do, okay? We're probably not using this to diagnose a food allergy. So this is probably not what we're finding, although you might find that that you do have a food allergy you didn't realize you had. A food intolerance is the second type of food reaction we're going to be looking for. So these are non-immune reactions to food components. Okay, so this isn't because your immune system is getting activated. This is happening because you're either lacking a digestive enzyme or a nutrient to assist in the breakdown of a particular food or a particular component of the food. So common intolerances, most common we think of lactose intolerance. So in lactose intolerance, you don't have enough of or the lactase enzyme to break down the lactose, the milk sugar. Okay, so that's a common example, but you can also be intolerant to sulfites, histamines, lectins, preservatives, artificial colors and fillers and flavorings, chocolate, citrus, acidic foods. Those are the most common. Okay, and symptoms, you might have flushing, cold or flu-like symptoms, inflammation pop up, general discomfort, GI symptoms definitely, and then some of those similar to allergy type symptoms. And because this isn't an immune response, these intolerances won't show up on a blood test like the food allergy might or the food sensitivity might. So this can be real. This program is really the gold standard for assessing if you have a food intolerance or a food sensitivity. So let's talk about sensitivities next. So a food sensitivity is an immune response, but it's different from an allergy because it's delayed. So the allergy, typically we know right away, whoa, I'm reacting to something that I ate or the environment around me. But a sensitivity is delayed, and it most often occurs when there's an imbalance in the gut. And so it's delayed, if you think about it, because if your gut's been leaky and some food particle or chemical or toxin passes through that gut barrier, activates the immune system, it might take some time before that inflammation travels and impacts another area of your body. So food sensitivities, it might take even like 2 or 3 days before you start experiencing the sensitivity to a food. So like an example, I know someone who's done this program, and she reintroduced soy and a couple days later broke out. And she had never made that connection that her acne was associated with the soy that she was being exposed to. And she wasn't necessarily eating a bunch of tofu or large portions of soy, but it was the additive soy that were in different things. So that was really insightful for her. So with food sensitivities, it's also helpful to know that, like we've talked about, food sensitivities can take a long time to clear up. That's why we've gone 30 days, because really the half-life of a sensitivity can be even like about 21 days, around that 3-week mark. So to see significant healing from a food sensitivity, it takes some time. So that's why we did this first portion of elimination, and now we're reintroducing slowly. Symptoms can be all over the place for food sensitivities. If that inflammation goes to the brain, we're thinking migraines, headaches, dizziness, difficulty sleeping, mood swings, depression, anxiety. If that inflammation impacts our hormones, we might see weight loss or other hormonal imbalances. We could see irregular heartbeat, irritable bowels, bloating, that abdominal GI distress. We could see allergy type similar symptoms. So the runny nose, wheezing, sinus problems. It's just maybe a little bit more delayed than the allergy symptoms. And food cravings, muscle and joint pain, nausea, vomiting, bladder control issues. I mean, you can see this list. It's exhaustive, right? Skin issues would be another, okay? So it's super important that you do this portion of reintroduction and tracking your symptoms thoroughly, because food sensitivities, they take a little bit of investigating, okay? They take a little bit of awareness to how your body's doing as you reintroduce new foods. So do it once, do it right. If you experience symptoms from a food, we want you to stop eating that food, and we want you to completely allow those symptoms to clear before you try reintroducing another food. Super important, so that you don't get confused. Because if you get confused, you might have to start back over on clearing out those symptoms and reintroducing those foods again. So the more strategic you can do this on the front end, the shorter everything will be, we promise. And then if you experience an adverse reaction to a food, say, eggs is the example, you reintroduce them, you experience some symptoms, you let those subside and you continue reintroducing other foods. What we want you to do is we want you to keep eggs out for about another 3 months would be ideal. At the very least, give it a couple weeks. But what we want to do is we want to allow that gut to continue to heal. We want that inflammation to come down and let your body kind of recalibrate. And then down the line, and most practitioners would say wait another 3 months, 3 to 6 even, and then reintroduce it again. And at that time, perhaps if your gut has recovered more, you may find that sensitivity is gone. However, some sensitivities can be for life. And so you may find that even when you reintroduce something, you still don't feel great eating it. So do it once, do it right. Please make sure, if you haven't already, go and read pages 22 through 24 in your comprehensive guide. Make sure you understand really well how to do reintroduction. And happy reintroducing. I hope you enjoy adding those foods back into your diet, and I do hope that it goes really well.